is self-love fundamentally important, a prerequisite for a healthy relationship? Okay? Number one, I got 5 reasons why. Number one is when you don't love yourself, you will accept things that are not a part of your core value system. I was telling somebody recently. Now, let me repeat that first before I get into it. You will accept things that not a part of your core belief system. You will accept things that are not a part of your standards. You will accept things that you never would accept if you truly loved yourself. And let me give you an example of this. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and she was like, "Oh, men cheat." And then I said, "Well, let me ask you a question." I said, "You ever been in a relationship where people were cheating?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Well, when you found out they were cheating, what did you do?" I stayed in it because, for whatever reason. So she started giving me all these reasons why she stayed in it. So I said, "You knew they were cheating. You accepted the behavior. And the reason I know you accepted the behavior is because you stayed in the relationship. So you accepted the behavior, which in turn conditioned them to keep doing the behavior. I don't care what story they gave you. You never created a standard. And what happens is, and part of that is, you believe something about yourself that makes you say, I'm going to allow this behavior. Y'all listen. We never allow behaviors unless a part of us believes something fundamentally about ourselves. Like you might believe that you're going to be alone. That's a limiting belief. You might believe I can't get anybody else. You might believe that if I leave them, I'm going to be devastated or whatever. You believe something about yourself. There's a part of you that believes something. And part of that is rooted in lack of self-love. And then so because you don't love yourself the way you should, you accept certain behaviors. You accept anything. That's why it amazes me that some women will allow a brother to cheat and he got 2 or 3 and you know about the other women. Stay in the relationship. That tells me that you don't love yourself. All right? That's number one. Because if you love yourself, why it's important? Because when you truly love yourself, you don't accept certain things. Number 2, all right, when you love yourself, you will attract a different kind of partner. Let me explain this, y'all. And whether you believe it or not, like attracts like. Like attracts like. The truth of the matter is the law of attraction is powerful. Whether you believe it or not, you ever notice how you always attract the kind of people who you are? Like if you're a positive person, you attract positive people in your life. If you're a negative person, you attract negative people. So I don't go too deep into this, but I've explained the law of attraction before. Simply the law of attraction, it means this. It's when I think something, what I think about, I bring about. When I think something, then I attach emotions to that which I'm thinking. Okay? That puts me on a vibrational frequency. And what happens is I attract anything on that frequency. So I'm going to attract other people who believe what I believe. That's why, y'all, when you think negatively, when you out here in the hood and you a criminal, you're going to attract other criminals because that's the wavelength you on. Thoughts become things. And what happens, the reason why thoughts become things is simply that you are attaching emotion to them. And so now, if you begin to love yourself, you're going to attract a different quality of partner. You're going to attract different kinds of people today. But if you don't believe it, you're going to keep attracting the same thing. And people say things to me like this. I keep attracting fools, crazy fools. I keep attracting. I said, well, you're not going to like what I'm about to say. But there's a part of you that is crazy, foolish, just like them. Because you're attracting that. There's a part of you that desires that. Now, you might not consciously do it, but there's something in you that it keeps attracting that kind of person. Now, get this. I'm not saying that you want to attract people, certain kinds of people. You might even attract people who are contrary to your thoughts, but they don't stay long. They don't stay long. And then that goes back to the first one. You won't allow certain things to stay long. Now, and this is where it gets twisted. Good people in a relationship will attract good and bad. I don't care. Every woman will attract good and bad men. The truth is the ones that they allow the behaviors they allow to stay is what makes the difference. A person of integrity would not allow certain things to stay. It just happens that way, y'all. And so when you start loving when you start loving yourself, you will attract a different kind of person, a different kind of partner. And until you go on this journey, because it is a journey of healing, a journey of self-reflection, a journey of self-acceptance, all of those things, and we're taking people on that journey now. And so what I want you to do is then and only then you can attract that certain kind of person. Because a lot of times when you don't love yourself and you think it's the other person, and the truth of the matter is it's you. Number 3, reasons you should love yourself. I wrote these down. You will improve the quality of your relationships. And what do I mean by that? Once you get in a relationship, now when you love yourself, you're not codependent. Y'all, I've seen relationships when people are in relationships because they're codependent on each other. And what I mean by codependent, not that, because when you're not codependent, you're like, I might love you, but I don't need you to be happy. When you're codependent, you need that other person to fulfill your happiness. I love my wife with all my heart, but the truth of the matter is, and if we were to break up, I would be sad. Yes. But I don't need her. I was happy before I met her. Without her, I'm still happy because I love me. Now, because I love me, I have more love to pour into the relationship. But I'm not codependent. I'm not codependent. I'm not, you know what? Because the truth is, when you are, when you're in a relationship and you want to improve the quality of your relationship, I always tell people, listen, start empowering yourself. But now the other person has to be willing to empower themselves. Because I know of a relationship right now where the guy is mad at the female because she is empowering herself. She is, she's being coached. She's changing. She got out of debt, built her credit up, and he's like, oh, you think you better. You changing. But the truth is, every person should want to empower themselves. But what happens is, the reason he doesn't want her to empower herself is because he wants her codependent. He wants her dependent on him for her happiness. Why? Because that's a form of control. It is, y'all. Anybody who's telling you not to better yourself, you shouldn't be doing this, where does that leave me? There, it's a codependent relationship. Number 4, why is self-love important? You show up differently in the relationship. You show up differently in the relationship. Now, what do I mean by you show up? So when you're in a relationship, we all show up a certain way. And a lot of times, when you don't love yourself, you show up in a needy fashion. You show up needy, you show up insecure, you show up but it doesn't come out, you don't come out and say, I'm insecure. What you do is, it comes out like this. Where are you? Where you been? I mean, why are you on the phone? Why you come back so late? And what happens is, why can't you come over here all the time? I mean, you spent time with your family last weekend. You're showing up in the relationship from a negative perspective, a low vibration, because I'm insecure. And what happens is when you show up from that perspective, the relationship doesn't have a foundation to last. And so I always tell people, how you show up is how you're going to show out. If you show up with positive vibes, you're going to show out with positive vibes. Show up with negative vibes, you're going to show out with them. So how you show up? Now, how should you show up? If you're loving yourself, you're going to show up confident. You're going to assume good intentions until they show you otherwise. And so what I'm saying is, when you love yourself, think about how you show up. How you show up. And the last one I wrote down was this. Ooh, powerful. Your partners will treat you differently. When you love yourself, people will treat you differently. People treat you how you treat yourself. Notice what I just said. People treat you how you treat yourself. If there are certain things that you're not going for, they're not going to treat you that way. They're not going to go for certain things. You know what I'm saying? If you know your worth, they're not going to expect you to be beneath your worth. And y'all, I'm not saying this process is easy. This process of self-discovery, one of my partners wrote a book, and it's called From Prison to Prosperity. And let me show you this book. So one of my partners wrote this book, From Prison to Prosperity. And the book is dynamic because he spent 10 years in federal prison. 10 years in federal prison. And what he did was he talked about every process that he had to go through. And the first part of it was self-reflection. And he talked about how when the judge gave him 10 years, he wrote a letter to the judge and said, I thank you for the 10 years because it's a present. He said, because if I had not had the 10 years to sit down, if I had not had the 10 years to reflect on myself, to learn how to love myself beyond, because he was into drugs, to learn how to love myself beyond the flashy clothes I used to wear, the jewelry, the cars. He said, the truth is, I was insecure about me, so I masqueraded behind all of the things that I had amassed. And he said, when the judge sat me down for 10 years, he said, in those 10 years, I got to figure out who I was. I got to accept me for who I am. I got to reflect on what brought me here. And then he said, I made a decision to change my life. I made a decision to fall in love with me and not the things. I made a decision to fall in love with who I was. And if I didn't like who I was, I fundamentally changed. I read every day. I learned about me. I learned about how I think and why I think the way that I do. I learned about my childhood. I thought about my childhood and what brought me to this point because I didn't want to reflect on it before. But now, because my father and I built a relationship when I was in prison. And now he said, man, before my dad left us, he said I held a grudge against him. But then I built a relationship with my dad in prison. And we've been partners for 4 years. And the man, I didn't know the man before he went to jail. But the man he is now is he's built a huge brand. He's a fitness trainer, a huge brand. He's written 4 books. 4 books. We do seminars together. And what he simply said was this. He said, you got to fall in love with you first. Fall in love with yourself first. And that process is the process that I'm going to go on. And I'm going to help as many people, especially women, fall in love with themselves so they set themselves up to have the relationship, attract the relationship of their dreams. Or if they're in a relationship, be in a relationship with their dreams. That's what we're going to do. Coming up soon, y'all. So tune in tomorrow too, because tomorrow I'm going to show you how to actually fall in love with yourself. Because some people, they have had so much trauma in their life. They've had so much bad stuff in their life that happened. They can't. It's like, what am I to love? They don't say it like that. Who am I to love? I'm not lovable. Yes, you are. And I'm going to show you how to do it. All right? Tomorrow, that's what we're going to do.